This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Helping you find emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. What does your future hold? It's time to find out with Psychic Suzanna.
Hello. That's right. You're right where you need to be here on 1110 KFAB with Life with Psychic Suzanna. You can find me at psychicsuzanna.com or my Facebook, which is Life with Psychic Suzanna. Please join us on the Facebook. You get to find out who's coming up on the air and what they're about, and so you can be prepared to listen to a great show. I also want you to know this is the show where you can go and pass the limits of your past and move forward into a new future. We're all about educating you here. We're all about helping you to be better in the next moment than you were in the last. And we are going to take that power with us today with our lecturer, our communicator, our author from today. We're talking to Dr. Michael Murdad, who is a world-renowned teacher and author. And he has worked in this field for over 25 years. Welcome, Dr. Murdad.
Hello there. How are you?
Totally blessed. Totally blessed.
Good.
Now,
thanks for having me.
I must tell you, I'm on the snow days are wonderful, and I understand you're going to be coming and being in the snow days here in Omaha, but they're wonderful because I'm on the computer looking for empowering guests, someone who can help my listeners to come into the future a little bit more. And I saw this wonderful, interesting book, and the book is You're Not Going Crazy, You're Just Waking Up. That really got my thoughts together. Tell me what you mean with that title of yours.
Well, it's interesting. In writing the book, I think it's my third or fourth book, and it was actually there's a certain question that had been coming up a lot at that particular time that was written within the last, say, year or so. And in my touring, which I do quite often, about 3 weeks a month I'm on tour, and in touring, a question kept coming up to people about transition, and how do you deal with transition, and why is this happening, and where do we go with it, and how do we get through it, how do we know when we're through it, et cetera. All the details, almost like the stages of death that were, eventually some years ago discovered, and I found myself answering the question quite often and fairly consistently with similar, outcome, and I realized I was on tour one day and woke up with pretty much the whole book in mind, and I just started writing, and I think this is important for any of us. There's a couple of points I'd like to make about that, but any of us, when we're sometimes we're getting, that's what creativity looks like, is a whole book. You wake up with a whole book or a whole song or a whole inspiration of a conversation you're going to have with your child today or whatever it happens to be. Those are really beautiful moments, and really the book was in my mind practically cover to cover, including what artwork was going to go on the book. It was just a really nice creation, and so I took a tablet, ripped a tablet of paper apart into stacks of paper, and laid it all out in front of me, and wrote a chapter here and a chapter. Just started scribbling notes as quickly as they were coming to me. Much of what I had already been saying over lectures over the last months, and it just kind of, then I faxed it over to somebody. They typed it up, and within a couple of days, I had the book in a Word document form, and it was being edited. So it happened quite quickly. And the second point I wanted to make about that is that part of the book, towards the end, part of the point of the book is that when we go through transformation properly, when we do it properly...
Can I hold you back a minute? I want to hold you back a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
There's two words I need to work with a little bit because you're talking to a new beginner here, okay?
Okay.
So when you say a transition, when we're transitioning like death, what does that mean to us? I'm not sure. Can you explain to me what a transition is?
Well, in this particular book, I'm describing any kind of change, crisis, whether it's someone in your life has passed away, whether it's you've lost your job, whether it's you have been struggling in a relationship lately, whatever the case may be.
So it's sort of like moving, like in transportation, from one place to another.
Well, yes, life is very much moving from one place to another. And when we're dealing with these kinds of things from a psychological standpoint, or from a spiritual standpoint for that matter, we're really saying that, from a psychological standpoint, we're studying that these things happen and their effects on us emotionally. When you take a deeper perspective and say, from a spiritual standpoint, you could define dealing with these transformations a little deeper. You'd say, I'm not just looking at how it affects me emotionally, I'm looking at what this is really, as deep as I could possibly understand, what is this really meant to be doing for my life. And everything really is about us waking up as human beings. We're not just evolving biologically. We're really evolving or waking up spiritually. Life is really about us becoming better people. And so I believe, and I propose in this book, and in much of what I teach and where I teach, that things aren't happening by accident, nor are they being caused without your participation. Things are happening because deep in our soul, deep in our being, we want to wake up. Deep in the core part of who we are, we really want to become better and better people. No, it doesn't always look like that, of course. Some people don't look anything similar to wanting to wake up, and I believe those people are people that are learning the hard way. But it's all for the greater good eventually, and I believe that we come into these changes, these moments, and instead of just saying these things happen by chance, I don't buy that. And I believe that, when they do happen, an event, a crisis, like the loss of a job, we could sit and bemoan it and say it just happens randomly, or we can say we're victims of somebody else's cruelty or insensitivity. Or we could say, you know what, I'm going to sit down and look at this for a minute, because when I take an honest look at this, I don't think I really like that job anyway. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm proposing is, I believe that there are these parts of us that are saying that we sort of subconsciously sabotage our lives and even instigate changes, like the end of a job. We may not like to think that. We may not anywhere come close to believing this at times in our life, especially when really heavy things happen to us. But it's pretty amazing and empowering to come to the day when you say, I realize that my boss didn't just let me go. I'm not just a victim of that. I actually realized that I never liked that job. And so if I didn't like it, there's a possibility that I was sending that message out somehow to the universe. And maybe the universe, in some way, shape, or form, it happened that this left me. Mm-hmm. It left. It was funny because I was watching the news the other day, or yesterday, I think, and they were talking about some... I was just flipping channels, and I saw this thing happen. They were saying, it's a scene of an earthquake that apparently happened, a little earthquake, maybe in California, I'm not sure where they said. And they were showing you how this animal, it was on the film, the camera that picked this up, a security camera, this dog was sitting on the ground, laying on the ground in the office, somebody's office, and seconds before the earthquake came, the dog jumped up. Nobody else could feel it. The dog jumped up and ran out of the room very crazily, like it really was erratic behavior, strange behavior, and it went running out of the room. The owner kind of got up and went looking to see what happened, and then the earthquake hit. My point is that dog had an extra sense that there was an earthquake coming, and human beings have senses that they deny, that they have, that tell us other things, deeper things, unseen things. So I really believe that we're in a place in our lives where we're coming to understand that we are participants in our lives much more than we used to think, and that we really are participating in creating many of the changes that go on in our life, because our to put it bluntly, our soul is seeking home. Okay. We're seeking spirit. We're seeking something great.
I'm going to have to stop you, and we're going to come right back with that prospect of how we get out of the victim status and how we move into the new status, how we wake up to life. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Stay tuned. We're coming back. We're growing together.
Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Hi, you're back with Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Yes, this is where you want to be to grow, to become better, to help you to step out of your problems and to move into the future a little more powerful than you were yesterday. You can find us at psychicsuzanna.com, where you have a link to all the radio shows that we've had. We've had some awesome lectures. And you can also find us and become a part of our group by Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook. When we talk about the great lecturers in the past, I really count this one as one of very special lecturers. You can find him, by the way, at Grail Productions, or you can call his number 360-671-8349. He is coming to the Omaha area. How exciting can that be? And right now, we're going to go back to our author of You're Just Waking Up. You're not going crazy. You're just waking up. And hello, Dr. Mirdad. Are you
Hello.
there again?
Yes, I am.
All right. So as you were talking about the lost jobs and the things, and it sounds like you're talking that this book is going to guide us out of our victimhood. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, this is... I didn't get the last two words. You went blank on my end.
Okay. This is getting us out of our victim status.
Well, yes.
I think most of us walk
around. I think
around.
everybody's moving in that direction. I'm hearing that more and more from people, that's the desire for all people, is to kind of emerge as more evolved people and less in that kind of the old primal, everybody's out to get us. That's an old primitive part of the brain that we, should, a long time ago, should have evolved out of, and where everybody's out to get us, and we, survival of the fittest and so forth.
A lot of us still are in that process, which is the growing. How do you know? Because it is scary to, as you said, you're not going crazy. You first think that as you open up to the spiritual side, the looking at things in a bigger portion, how do we know that we're not going crazy? Apparently by looking at your book. And you have 5 stages of transformation. Tell us about those stages.
Well, in answering that, I could say first, I believe when you think about the concept of the idea going crazy, that means that something doesn't make sense. And the stages of transformation do make sense. You also feel crazy, meaning you're the only one experiencing this and nobody else is experiencing the same reality. That's also not true. Everybody experiences this. So the reason we can say you're not going crazy is because this is an experience shared by everybody. See, as opposed to, I'm the only one experiencing this, then that certainly is going to make you feel like you're going crazy because you're experiencing a different reality than all the other human beings around you. No, not in this case. We all go through this process, and it's something that has purpose. It has meaning. It isn't crazy or random. It has purpose. It has meaning. And that purpose is, again, in a word, evolution. It's spiritual, psychological, personal evolution. But it is really very much about evolution. So we're heading in a new direction, really. And, as it comes down to it, the stages that I describe, first, in brief, we start off with its dismantling. Your life is going to be dismantled. Now, in small ways and in big ways. Small ways meaning, maybe a little change, like, maybe your children move out and go to college. That's a big change for some of us. It's small compared to the death of a loved one. Mm-hmm. And then there's others that are bigger than that, and others that are even smaller than that. But you might get a new car today and let go of your old car. It was your favorite old car. You had it for 10 years, 20 years, or whatever. That's still a little transformation of some kind. It's a change of some kind. You paint your house a new color inside. It's a change. Those are small changes. The kids moving away are a little bigger than that. Somebody dying isn't a little bigger than that. But every one of them has the same underlying purpose. You're supposed to be asking yourself what you can learn from these particular events. So what happens, before we get around to saying, what can I learn from this, because that's a big level of responsibility, before we go there, we usually start off with, number 1 stage. First of all, you're dismantled. A change takes place. Something in your life gets changed or dismantled, as I call it. Mm-hmm. Secondly, because something changed, we usually feel a bit empty. Like defeated, beaten, sad. depressed even, depending on how big the change was or, whatever. And the quantity of how much you feel depressed or sad afterwards is going to really be contingent on how much you were attached to the form that previous thing was in. Whatever, you were attached to, the attachment itself is going to proportionally affect how depressed or sad you feel. So if I'm really attached to being a mom and having my kids at the house and having them around and making me feel like I have value, taking them to school and getting them ready for this and talking to them about their lives and they're growing up, over the years, all of a sudden they move off and go to school. Now, I know that part of me wishes them well, but a part of me is going to feel deflated when they've moved off. They call it empty nest syndrome, which I think is a hilarious play on words because an empty nest is so similar to emptiness. So the mom might very much feel emptiness because her investment in who she thought she was has just been altered. But ironically, it isn't who she really is. That was a temporary stop-off to be a mom for those kids. Your life's still waiting for you, but you don't want to hear that right now. You want to be empty and sad, so there you go. So you're going to stay in stage 2 and pout for a little while. No offense meant to those who do, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to feel bummed out. But this isn't God's will for you. This isn't your ultimate destiny or destination. This is your choice to be a bit deflated, depressed, and it's because of your attachments and the way you preferred things to be, and they're no longer that way. So you're going to eventually, though, emerge from that little empty nest or emptiness. And sometimes it looks like, your partner kicks you out of the house and you're sitting alone in an apartment with a pizza box sitting on a chair as your table, and there's no furniture and your voice echoes. That's emptiness. That's that second stage. Something changed, your relationship and your living circumstances.
Okay.
Now you're sitting literally in an empty apartment. It is emptiness, and it's going to be for a period. But the third phase is the disorientation. This is where you start to ask, what now? Where do I go from here? And that's the mom saying, who am I if I'm no longer a mom to these kids? It's the man who retires from a job he's been doing for 30 years and often doesn't know where he goes from here. And sadly, there's a large, almost like an epidemic of people that lose value when they retire at the end of their lives. There's a large quantity of people that end up taking on disease or passing away, and I don't think that's an accident or coincidence. It's because we lose sight of having any purpose once we retired. But you're supposed to go out and find a new level of purpose because you're still there. You didn't die when your job ended. You're still there. So instead, we're feeling what I call disorientation. Where do I go from here? Who am I really? Now, here's the big piece of this whole 5-step program or the 5-step transformation process. And by the way, this isn't like a program I developed or something I'm selling or copywriting. I have this new 5-stage process that everybody should go through. This is something we all go through. I just happen to see it and label it. I put it down on paper, but we all go through it, so I don't own it. So this 5-step transformation process.
Are you telling me you're not willing to own my problems?
No, much as I would like to, huh? No, I'm kidding.
So what you're telling us is these 5 steps are these the dismantling, the emptiness, the disorientation is similar to everybody else and what they've done, what they go through.
Everybody.
And no matter what our garbage is.
Or it could be a 5-year-old or a 95-year-old, married, single, black or white, doesn't matter. It happens to everybody. And the sooner we realize it, the more we can get on board and do it properly, more effectively, more efficiently. So in the biggest part of this whole 5 steps is the point between step 3 and 4, because in step 3, you're disoriented. And when people are disoriented, they tend to panic, and they try to step in and take control, because you don't want to be disoriented or out of control. So people at that point, they're going to say, oh, my God, I'm feeling disoriented, and they're going to try to grab hold of the steering wheel, which I'm defining as controlling your life.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, not so good. Not so good, because you're the one who messed up your life in many ways. So when you try to renegotiate your life and get it back into being the way it always has been, this is like the person who says, they've had all these opportunities to change because they're an addict of some kind. And their partner says, you need to stop being an addict. And you say, no. Now they leave you. You are feeling dismantled. Then you're going to feel empty and sad, then you're going to feel disoriented. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to call your partner and you're going to say, listen, I promise I'll change. You're going to try to make some desperate negotiation to get your life back the way it was instead of going forward.
Okay, we're going to take a little break again.
Yep.
And I'm going to hold you over because now that we've just been disorientated from our garbage, I need you to tell us, how do we rebuild and come to a new life? We are going to be right back. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Stay tuned. This is where you grow.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Hi, you're back with Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. We're talking to Dr. Michael Murdad. I want to call you the name of the city in Spain, but we're talking to him about changing our life. He is going to be lecturing here in Omaha, which is quite exciting to have him come to our fine city and help us grow through the 5 stages of moving through transformation, moving through life's problems. And we're going to give you the number you can call him at, or go to his website where you can see a picture of him, and we'll go through that. But first, let's just go back real quickly, Dr. or Michael. Could you possibly help us decide, now that we've been disorientated because we're no longer in our past, we're moving through to our future, how do we rebuild our life? How do we, after losing our job, after we're losing our mate, after we're losing so much in our life, how do we move past that? What will help us move into a better future?
Well, the first key is to let go of control. There's a bridge that runs between stage 3 and 4, and you're not crossing that bridge without surrender. So you cannot have control and surrender at the same time. If you want to regain control of your life in your old patterns and ways and fear-based attitudes, then you're going to go right back to doing the same old thing. And it's like a person ends a relationship, and then on the rebound, they got to grab somebody else because they can't stand the idea of being alone. That would be a good example. Now you're just going to grab hold of another not-so-healthy relationship, which is going to end up getting dismantled again. You're going to feel empty again, disoriented again, and grab hold of yet another person, and you'll stay looping around and around and around those first 3 cycles of life, stages of life, and you're not going to go much further, and that's where most people reside. Now, if you have the courage to let go, to surrender, you'll be able to jump over the bridge from step 3 to 4, which is called rebuilding.
Okay, before we go there,
I call rebuilding...
Doc, before we go there, I need to ask you, the word surrender scares me. That scares me. Does that not say weakness?
That's a great point. A lot of people equate surrender with weakness. You're going to get to the idea of surrender in one of 2 ways. Either you're going to say, you know what, even though I'm scared by the word surrender, the concept of surrender, I'm so fed up anyway, I'm just going to do it. My life, I've been married 16 times. This time, I'm just going to not try to do it my way. I'm going to trust and surrender and say, what else might there be that could make my life a little better besides my old way of doing things? Surrender could take the form of not doing things the way your family's done it for 18 generations and instead looking for a new way of doing things. It's risking, it is a little risky. It is trusting, but there's good news. You're not trusting in somebody else, and you're not trusting in your old fear-based patterns. You're trusting in something spiritual, God, something that has your best intentions, a greater power, any word you want to use for it. The 12-step program might have one term for it, so another group might have another term for it. The idea is there is something that knows better, has your best interest in mind, and knows better what is right for you. So you will not be able to step over that bridge of your own doing. You won't be able to do it based on your old ways of doing things. It's just not practical. It's not going to work. You're going to end up looping around and around. So yes, as risky as it sounds, over the bridge you go when you're ready. And either you're going to do it because you're fed up, and so you desperately reach for surrender, or some of us just say, it just makes sense to do it. Some of us just say, I'm ready, and I love the idea of trusting Spirit to guide me, and it's called almost like being born again in a way, because the old you is certainly dying. So you're stepping over that bridge with new inspiration. So even though it's scary for some, there's a point in everybody's life where you'll inevitably choose it. So we step over the bridge to rebuilding, and that rebuilding is to be done with guidance now. In other words, instead of just doing things impulsively, compulsively, addictively, reactively, and fear-based, we instead are saying, I'm ready for something new. And it's going to be something as simple as prayer, asking for guidance, and listening to common sense, not choosing to do things that are so self-abusive, not going into the same old desperate reactive patterns. I don't want to be alone, so I'm going to just take anybody into my household. Of course that person's going to be less than loving, less than healthy. They're going to bring unhealthy elements into my life, whether it's abusing my children or tempting me to self-abuse. We don't need that anymore. We're going to say no, because we're rebuilding something. That whole rebuilding, it means new. It means not the old. So there's going to be something wonderful, and that's why stage 5 is called a new life, because the new life that you're going to get here is going to come from your courage and your tenacity, sticking to the rebuilding only with Spirit as a guide, as opposed to doing the old way. So there is a definite choice making here. There's an old scripture that says, choose whom ye will serve, God or manna, reality or illusion. So we have to make our choices, and it is a choice. This isn't just for some. Everybody will come to this choice time and time again in their lives, where you can go back to the same old limited life and lifestyle, or you can step over the bridge and receive a whole new life and experience.
Wow. I'm really actually looking forward to your lecture. I'm looking forward to your time here in Omaha. I am certainly excited about hooking up with you. Now tell us how we do this. Do you have it, or should I read the number I've got?
No, go ahead. I know that I'm at the Ohm Center, and I know that I'm going to be at the Unity Church presenting different workshops, and I'll also be doing private sessions in the area.
Okay.
The sessions involve, healing and counseling and things like that, sort of a read for people, life guidance, and so on. But if there are some specific announcements you'd like to make, go for it.
Well,
and
I
my
would
website,
think the number...
It's all on my website if people need to know, which is Grail, like the Holy Grail, Productions.com.
Okay. And the phone number, which is 360-671-8349. I look forward to growing with you. Michael, have a blessed day, and thank you for being our guest.
Many blessings to you and to your listeners.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Psychic Suzanna.
Can't get through on the radio show? Call Psychic Suzanna anytime at 712-276-9349. That's 712-276-9349, or visit her webpage, PsychicSuzanna.com.
Hi. Yes, you're back. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Please note you can find me at PsychicSuzanna.com or Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook. Please join us. Become one of our friends where we can send you out mailings. We want your suggestions on what you want to hear on the show. You can reach us by also calling my secretary at 712-276-9349. If you know someone in town that has something to add to the show, please give us a call. We want to check them out. Also, I want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. Mirdad. He was wonderful, wasn't he? But he brought to mind a story that I heard one time, and this story has to do with a little boy, and his name was Jim. I hope you're listening, Jim. And Jim had broken his toy, and so he goes to his father and says to his father, "Father, will you fix my toy? It's broke. And it's my favorite toy. Will you really, please, Father, please fix my toy?" And his dad looked at him and said, "Jim, I love you a lot. Of course. I want to help you. I want to be there for you. Of course, I will fix your toy." So a few minutes went by, and, Jim is crying, a little upset because he broke his favorite toy. And then he looked at God and said, God, which are his dad, and said, Daddy, you said you'd fix my toy. You didn't fix my toy. Why didn't you fix my toy? You promised to fix my toy. Why didn't you fix my toy? And his daddy, which now you know by my goof up before, is actually God. And he looked at Jim and said, I would have loved to have fixed your toy, but you wouldn't let go. And I couldn't get a hold of it. And I couldn't fix it. So that's, I believe, what Michael was talking about. We have to let go of our problems for us to get a solution. We have to take the time to trust God to be there for us, trust the Spirit to be there for us, trust whomever you want. But you need to learn to surrender and to give it up to Spirit for Him to take care of it for us. Now, we're going to take a little short break because we went over on a couple of them. And then when we come back, we're going to take your calls because, yes, this is where we're going to take time to look into your future. The numbers to call are, of course, 1-800. That's if you're out of Omaha. By the way, last week someone sneaked on from Council Bluff, called the 800 number. What's up with that? Okay, we don't want that to happen, all right? You people farther away, give us a call at 1-800-543-1110 or 558 locally here, 558-1110. Yes, you're listening to Life with Psychic Suzanna on KFAB, looking into your future and empowering you for tomorrow.
Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Hello,